In the forenoon Mr. Heatherstone dictated 1 or 2 letters to him, which he wrote, and after that his time was at his own disposal, and was chiefly passed in the company of Patience and Clara. With the first he had now become on the most intimate and brotherly footing, and when they addressed each other, Patience and Edward were the only appellations made use of. Once Mr. Heatherstone asked Edward whether he would not like to go out with Oswald to kill a deer, which he did, but the venison was hardly yet in season. There was a fine horse in the stable at Edward's order, and he often rode out with Patience and Clara. Indeed, his time passed so agreeably that he could hardly think it possible that a fortnight had passed away, when he asked permission to go over to the cottage and see his sisters. With the intendant's permission, Patience and Clara accompanied him, and the joy of Alice and Edith was great when they made their appearance. Oswald had, by Edward's request, gone over a day or 2 before, to tell them that they were coming, that they might be prepared, and the consequence was that it was a holy day at the cottage. Alice had cooked her best dinner, and Humphrey and Pablo were at home to receive them. "How pleasant it will be if we are to see you and Clara whenever we see Edward," said Alice to Patience. "So far from being sorry that Edward is with you, I shall be quite glad of it." "I water the flowers every day," said Edith, "and they make the garden look so gay." "I will bring you plenty more in the autumn, Edith, but this is not the right time for transplanting flowers yet," replied Patience. "And now, Alice, you must take me to see your farm, for when I was here last I had no time. Let us come now, and show me everything." "But my dinner, Patience, I cannot leave it, or it will be spoiled, and that will never do. You must either go with Edith now, or wait till after dinner, when I can get away." "Well, then, we will stay till after dinner, Alice, and we will help you to serve it up." "Thank you. Pablo generally does that, for Edith cannot reach down the things. I don't know where he is." "He went away with Edward and Humphrey, I think," said Edith. "I'll scold him when he comes back, for being out of the way." "Never mind, Edith, I can reach the dishes," said Patience, "and you and Clara can then take them, and the platters, and put them on the table for Alice." And Patience did as she proposed, and the dinner was soon afterward on the table. There was a ham, and 2 boiled fowls, and a piece of salted beef, and some roasted kid, besides potatoes and green peas, and when it is considered that such a dinner was put on the table by such young people left entirely to their own exertions and industry, it must be admitted that it did them and their farm great credit. In the meantime, Edward and Humphrey, after the first greetings were over, had walked out to converse, while Pablo had taken the horses into the stable. "Well, Humphrey, how do you get on?" "Very well," replied Humphrey. "I have just finished a very tough job. I have dug out the saw pit, and have sawed the slabs for the sides of the pit, and made it quite secure. The large fir tree that was blown down is now at the pit, ready for sawing up into planks, and Pablo and I are to commence tomorrow. At first we made but a bad hand of sawing off the slabs, but before we had cut them all, we got on pretty well. Pablo don't much like it, and indeed no more do I much. It is such mechanical work, and so tiring, but he does not complain, and I do not intend that he shall saw more than 2 days in a week. That will be sufficient. We shall get on fast enough." "You are right, Humphrey. It is an old saying that you must not work a willing horse to death. Pablo is very willing, but hard work he is not accustomed to." "Well, now you must come and look at my flock of goats, Edward. They are not far off. I have taught Holdfast to take care of them, and he never leaves them now, and brings them home at night. Watch always remains with me, and is an excellent dog, and very intelligent." "You have indeed a fine flock, Humphrey," said Edward. "Yes, and they are improved in appearance already since they have been here. Alice has got her geese and ducks, and I have made a place large enough for them to wash in until I have time to dig them out a pond. I thought we had gathered more hay than you required, but with this addition I think you will find none to spare before the spring." "So far from it, that I have been mowing down a great deal more, Edward, and it is almost ready to carry away. Poor Billy has had hard work of it, I assure you, since he came back, with one thing and another. Poor fellow! But it won't last long, Humphrey," said Edward, smiling. "The other horses will soon take his place." "I trust they will," said Humphrey, "at all events by next spring. Before that I do not expect that they will. By the by, Humphrey, you recollect what I said to you that the robber I shot told me just before he died?" "Yes, I do recollect it now," replied Humphrey, "but I had quite forgotten all about it till you mentioned it just now, although I wrote it down that we might not forget it." "Well, I have been thinking all about it, Humphrey. The robber told me that the money was mine, taking me for another person. Therefore I do not consider it was given to me, nor do I consider that it was his to give. I hardly know what to do about it, nor to whom the money can be said to belong." "Well, I think I can answer that question. The property of all malefactors belongs to the king, and therefore this money belongs to the king, and we may retain it for the king, or use it for his service. Yes, it would have belonged to the king, had the man been condemned, and hung on the gallows as he deserved, but he was not, and therefore I think that it does not belong to the king." "Then it belongs to whoever finds it, and who keeps it till it is claimed, which will never be." "I think I must speak to the intendant about it," replied Edward. "I should feel more comfortable." "Then do so," replied Humphrey. "I think you are right to have no concealments from him." "But, Humphrey," replied Edward, laughing, "what silly fellows we are! We do not yet know whether we shall find anything. We must first see if there is anything buried there, and when we have done so, then we will decide how to act. I shall, if it please God, be over again in a fortnight, and in the meantime do you find out the place, and ascertain if what the fellow said is true." "I will," replied Humphrey. "I will go to-morrow, with Billy and the cart, and take a spade and pickaxe with me. It may be a fool's errand, but still they say, and one would credit, for the honour of human nature, that the words of a dying man are those of truth. We had better go back now, for I think dinner must be ready." Now that they had become so intimate with Patience Heatherstone, and, I may add, so fond of her, there was no longer any restraint, and they had a very merry dinner party; and after dinner Patience went out with Alice and Edith, and looked over the garden and farm. She wished very much to ascertain if there was anything that they required, but she could discover but few things, and those only trifles; but she recollected them all, and sent them to the cottage a few days afterward. But the hour of parting arrived, for it was a long ride back, and they could not stay any longer if they wished to get home before dark, as Mr. Heatherstone had requested Edward that they should do. So the horses were brought out, and wishing good-bye, they set off again, little Edith crying after them, "Come again soon! Patience, you must come again soon!" End of chapter 19. Recording by Kalinda in Raymond, New Hampshire, on October 12th, 2007.